At 5:12 local time, the sea is flat, the horizon is clear, and deep inside the Combat Information Center of a U.S. Navy destroyer moving a few miles ahead of a carrier strike group, the radar picture suddenly shifts. Two new contacts appear. They are fast, high above the water, and approaching from the north. The Spy 1D radar picks them up immediately. At first, the returns are small. Then, with every sweep, they grow stronger. A tracking officer leans toward the console. Two fast movers bearing 034. No transponder, no identification code, no civilian flight plan. Just two aircraft cutting quickly across open ocean. Range, 178 nautical miles. Inside the CIC, the lights are low, the air is cool, and everything feels controlled. No one shouts, no warning tones fill the room, but every operator knows exactly what comes next. The track is marked. Speed is calculated. Mach 1.6. That alone eliminates ordinary commercial traffic. The officer of the watch gives a calm order. Track and classify. The next radar sweep adds more detail. The aircraft are holding roughly 40,000 feet, staying in tight formation and flying directly toward the carrier strike group. No deviation, no radio call, just speed, direction, and clear purpose. The destroyer sends the first radio hail on International Guard frequencies. Unidentified aircraft approaching U.S. naval formation. This is a United States Navy warship. Identify yourself and state your intentions. The message disappears into empty sky. No answer. In the carrier's hangar bay behind them, deck crews continue normal operations. A pair of F/A-18E Super Hornets sit on alert, cold but ready. Sailors move across the flight deck, unaware that more than 170 miles away, something is closing in fast. Back in the destroyer's CIC, the operators keep watching. Range 160 miles. The strike group commander gets the update at once through the tactical data network connecting every ship and aircraft in the formation. There is no panic, only a single instruction passed over encrypted communications. Monitor, do not escalate. Another radar sweep. This time the return is sharper. The radar cross-section looks larger than expected for a standard fighter. The air search controller narrows his eyes. Possible twin-engine platform. That assessment triggers the next move. An E-2D Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft is ordered off the carrier. On the flight deck, the large turboprop rolls into position. Its radar dome catches the first light of morning as the catapult throws it into the air. Within minutes, the Hawkeye is climbing above the strike group, scanning hundreds of miles of sky. It quickly locks onto both contacts. Altitude confirmed, 40,000 feet. Speed unchanged. Course steady, still inbound. Inside the Hawkeye's mission station, electronic sensors begin examining the emissions coming from the unknown aircraft. Seconds later, a technician speaks. Radar signature detected. The waveform does not match civilian databases, but military analysts recognize it immediately. Flanker family radar. That means the aircraft are not civilian. They are fighters. Another scan sharpens the profile. Wide wingspan, twin engines, strong radar emissions. The Hawkeye sends the identification across the strike group network. Possible Su-35. Inside the destroyer's CIC, nobody shows emotion, but every sailor understands the significance. The Sukhoi Su-35 is not a surveillance platform. It is a long-range air superiority fighter, capable of carrying anti-ship missiles built to threaten vessels as large as an aircraft carrier. Range, 120 miles. The carrier strike group quietly adjusts its formation. Two destroyers move slightly ahead of the carrier's course. A cruiser tightens its defensive position. Electronic warfare systems come alive across the formation, searching for targeting signals. Still no response from the approaching aircraft. No identification. No correction in course. At 100 miles, the Hawkeye detects something new. Infrared sensors pick up hardpoints under the wings of both fighters. External stores. Missiles. For several seconds, the strike group command channel goes silent while analysts confirm the data. 4 pylons. Large missile bodies. Anti-ship loadouts are now considered highly likely, and the two aircraft are still flying straight toward the U.S. carrier. Inside the CIC, the tactical display now shows a stark picture. 100,000 tons of American steel moving across open water, and two Iranian-operated Su-35 fighters closing the gap, fast, deliberate, and fully armed. At 5:24 local time, the aircraft are now 82 nautical miles from the carrier strike group. Their speed remains steady at Mach 1.6. Their course has not changed. High above the fleet, inside the E-2D Hawkeye, radar operators continue tracking every move. The APY-9 radar sweeps across vast airspace, refreshing the tactical picture in real time. Two tracks dominate the display. Fast, deliberate, closing. Then the Hawkeye crew notices a change. The lead jet drops first, descending from 40,000 feet to 25,000. Seconds later, the second aircraft follows. A lower altitude makes radar detection more difficult and improves missile launch geometry. Inside the destroyer's Combat Information Center, the Air Defense Coordinator spots the pattern immediately. Altitude change confirmed. A second operator studies the tactical picture more closely. They're splitting. The two aircraft begin to separate. One climbs again, pushing back toward 30,000 feet. The other drops lower, descending to 18,000. The geometry is clear now. They are widening the angle of approach, creating the shape of a classic pincer attack. For the carrier strike group, that changes everything. Instead of one possible launch path, there are now two. At this distance, that difference is critical. The Hawkeye pushes the update across the formation. Two Su-35s confirmed. Possible anti-ship loadout. The message moves instantly through the Navy's Cooperative Engagement Capability Network. Every ship in the strike group now shares the same picture. Two hostile tracks marked in red, closing with purpose. On the carrier's flight deck, the alert fighters are no longer standing by. Steam bursts from the catapult. Two FA-18E Super Hornets launch into the morning sky. Call signs, Raptor 1 and Raptor 2. Their task is simple: intercept. The two American fighters accelerate the moment they are airborne, climbing hard toward the incoming threat. Back in the Hawkeye, electronic surveillance operators keep listening to the emissions coming from the Su-35s. Then the spectrum display changes. A sharp spike appears. This is no longer search radar. One of the Iranian fighters has switched modes. Inside the destroyer's CIC, the electronic warfare officer speaks in a steady voice. Fire control radar active. That changes the meaning of everything in the air. Search radar scans broad sections of sky. Fire control radar focuses on a specific target. In practical terms, it means one thing. The aircraft is preparing to employ a weapon. The Hawkeye confirms the signal and relays it across the strike group. Possible targeting radar detected. Distance to fleet, 60 miles. The carrier strike group still does not fire. Not yet. But the defensive web quietly comes alive. The Aegis combat systems aboard two destroyers begin assigning tracking solutions to the incoming aircraft. Missile cells below deck move from standby to armed status. Surface-to-air interceptors are now ready. Above the ocean, Raptor 1 and Raptor 2 keep closing. Their radars sweep forward. Both fighters quickly acquire the contacts. Two large returns, twin engines, exactly where the Hawkeye predicted. The intercept course is clean. The distance between the American fighters and the Su-35s is collapsing fast. 30 miles, 25. But the Iranian aircraft keep coming. No breakaway, no hesitation. Then another signal appears. Infrared sensors detect a brief flash beneath the wing of the lower Su-35. Just a flicker, but unmistakable. A weapon system is powering on. The data reaches the destroyer's CIC at once. Missile guidance radar. That means the anti-ship weapon is no longer simply mounted under the wing. It is ready. Inside the strike group's command center, nobody speaks for several seconds. Every eye is fixed on the tactical display. The range is now 45 nautical miles. At that distance, some anti-ship missiles could reach the fleet in well under a minute after launch. The American intercept fighters are still closing, but they are not yet in ideal firing position. The Su-35s hold the attack formation. One high, one low, two separate approach angles. Electronic warfare systems aboard the destroyers begin sending jamming signals into the sky, probing and disrupting the guidance systems of the incoming fighters. The pulses move invisibly through the air. Still, the Su-35s continue forward. 38 miles. Then, the Hawkeye operator sees something on the infrared feed. Movement beneath the wing. A missile shifts slightly on its launch rail. Inside the destroyer's CIC, the Air Defense Coordinator speaks softly. Stand by. Aegis automatically refines its intercept calculations. Surface-to-air missiles below deck are now fully aligned with their firing solutions. The Super Hornets are only moments away from weapons range, but the Iranian fighters have already reached theirs. 32 miles. And then, suddenly, a bright flash erupts beneath the wing of the lead Su-35. At 5:31 local time, that flash lasts less than a second, but every sensor in the carrier strike group catches it. Infrared satellites, airborne warning systems, shipboard radar. Inside the destroyer's Combat Information Center, the tactical display updates instantly. A new object appears. Small, fast, descending. Missile launch confirmed. The Air Defense Coordinator does not raise his voice. Missile inbound. The weapon separates cleanly from the Su-35's wing and ignites its booster. A bright plume trails behind it as the missile surges away from the fighter. Within seconds, it angles down toward the ocean surface. Sea skimming profile. Built to disappear inside radar clutter just above the waves. Its speed rises fast. Mach 3. At that velocity, it covers roughly a mile every 2 seconds. Distance to the carrier strike group, 28 nautical miles. Estimated time to impact, less than 40 seconds. Inside the CIC, the room remains dim, cool, and controlled. No one makes a sudden move, but every operator shifts into the final phase of fleet air defense. Condition 1. The highest state of combat readiness a naval vessel can enter. On the tactical display, the missile track cuts straight toward the heart of the formation, the carrier itself. The destroyer's Aegis combat system builds an intercept solution automatically. Radar arrays hold the incoming weapon in a continuous track while the computer selects the most effective response. Solution confirmed. A single command appears on the fire control console. Engage. Below deck, armored hatches slide open across the vertical launch system. One cell ignites. An SM-6 interceptor erupts upward in a tower of flame and smoke, clearing the launcher, rolling hard toward the horizon, and accelerating past Mach 3 within seconds. Now, above the ocean, 2 missiles are racing toward one another, one built to strike ships, the other built to stop it. But the attack is not over. High above the engagement zone, the second Su-35 begins its move. The fighter banks slightly, changing its heading just enough to open a new launch angle. Infrared sensors catch the moment. Another flash, second missile launch. This one takes a different path, dropping quickly until it is flying barely 15 feet above the ocean surface. That lower profile makes it harder to detect, harder to track, and much harder to intercept. Inside the CIC, 2 separate threat tracks now appear on the display. Missile 1, Missile 2. 2 approach paths, both converging on the strike group from different directions. The Air Defense Coordinator gives the next order. Assign second intercept. A nearby cruiser receives the command instantly through the Aegis network. Another vertical launch cell ignites. An ESSM interceptor blasts into the sky. Now the morning air holds a deadly geometry, 2 defensive interceptors and 1 incoming missile driving toward collision. The first intercept comes quickly. The SM-6 tears across the sky, guided by continuous radar support from the destroyer's phased array system. The computers refine the firing solution again and again, dozens of times each second. The gap shrinks fast, 2 miles, 1 mile, half a mile. Then a flash blooms high above the water. The first anti-ship missile breaks apart in a violent burst as the interceptor detonates beside it. Fragments scatter across the sky and fall into the sea. Inside the CIC, the radar track disappears. First threat neutralized, but the second missile is still coming, and it is flying much lower. At only 15 feet above the water, the weapon blends into the clutter created by waves, spray, and sea return. For several seconds, it nearly vanishes from radar. Then the destroyer's sensors pick it up again. Range, 7 miles. Time to impact, less than 12 seconds. At that distance, the window for long-range interceptors is nearly gone. The next defensive layer activates automatically. On the deck of a nearby destroyer, the Phalanx close-in weapon system comes alive. The turret swings toward the horizon. Its radar locks onto the incoming target almost instantly. Tracking solution complete. The system's 6-barrel Gatling gun begins to spin faster and faster until it reaches full firing speed, 4,500 rounds per minute. Inside the CIC, the tactical display shows the missile rushing toward the strike group. 6 miles, 5, 4. The CIWS radar holds a perfect lock. 3 miles, 2, and then the gun opens fire. A continuous stream of 20mm rounds pours from the rotating barrels, forming a dense wall of metal directly in the missile's path. For a brief instant, the horizon becomes a blur of tracer fire, recoil, and smoke. The incoming missile flies straight into it, and the sky erupts. At 5:32 local time, the explosion flashes across the ocean just beyond the outer defensive ring of the carrier strike group. The anti-ship missile vanishes in a violent burst of fire and debris as it collides with the stream of 20mm rounds fired by the Phalanx close-in weapon system. For a split second, the sky turns white. Then dark fragments rain into the sea. Inside the Combat Information Center, the radar track collapses. The second threat is gone. The carrier strike group has survived the attack, but the situation is still unfolding high above the fleet. The 2 Iranian Su-35 fighters are still in the air. And now they face a new problem. The American intercept fighters have arrived. Raptor 1 and Raptor 2 streak toward the Iranian aircraft at more than Mach 1.2, climbing through broken cloud as they close the final distance. Inside the cockpit of Raptor 1, the radar display shows 2 large targets directly ahead. Range 9 miles. The pilot locks onto the lead Su-35. Target confirmed. A steady tone fills the headset. Lock achieved. Across the sky, the Iranian pilot's radar warning receiver erupts in alarm. The Su-35 reacts immediately, rolling hard right and pulling into a tight defensive turn, trying to break the lock. But the American fighters are already within weapons range. Inside Raptor 1, the weapons officer confirms the shot. Fox 3. An AIM-120-AM-RAAM leaves the Super Hornet's wing. Its motor ignites instantly, driving the missile forward at extreme speed as it climbs toward the retreating Su-35. In the terminal phase, it guides on its own active radar. The Iranian pilot responds with countermeasures. Bright flares burst behind the aircraft. Chaff scatters into the air, trying to disrupt the missile's tracking. The Su-35 pulls into a violent maneuver, climbing sharply and rolling to force a change in angle. The missile closes fast. 2 miles. 1 mile. Then a sudden detonation. The AMRAAM explodes close behind the fighter. The blast does not bring the aircraft down, but the shockwave is enough to force the pilot out of the attack. Across the tactical network, the second Super Hornet locks onto the other Su-35. At that moment, the Iranian formation falls apart. The higher aircraft dives sharply. The lower one accelerates north. Both fighters push their speed to Mach 1.8. They are no longer moving toward the carrier strike group. They are leaving it. Inside the destroyer's CIC, the tactical display confirms the change. 2 hostile tracks turning away from the formation. The distance begins to grow. The American fighters stay on course for several more minutes, holding radar lock to make sure the Iranian aircraft don't turn back for another run. But the Su-35 pilots have already made their choice. They disengage. Their jets accelerate further, heading north across open ocean. Gradually, their radar signatures shrink, fading until they slip beyond the reach of the Hawkeye's sensors. By 5:38 local time, the picture is clear. Threats cleared. Inside the Combat Information Center, the tension finally eases. Operators verify the final logs. 2 missiles launched, 2 missiles stopped, no damage to the carrier, no damage to any ship in the strike group. On the carrier's flight deck, sailors who had watched distant flashes on the horizon return to their normal routine. Aircraft continue landing and launching as if nothing happened. The massive ship never altered its course. It simply kept moving forward at steady speed. 100,000 tons of steel and nuclear power, protected by a layered defense built for exactly this kind of moment. Above the fleet, the Hawkeye continues its orbit, radar sweeping the horizon again, scanning, listening. Because everyone in the strike group understands something important. Those 2 Iranian Su-35 pilots did not travel hundreds of miles over open water by accident. They arrived armed. They used their weapons. And even though the attack failed, they revealed something far more valuable, something the U.S. Navy had been waiting to see. Back inside the carrier's intelligence center, analysts are already replaying every second of the encounter. By 6:10 local time, the ocean is calm again. From the flight deck, the view looks exactly as it did an hour earlier. Blue water, clear sky, and the steady wake of a carrier cutting through open sea. To an outside observer, nothing unusual happened. But inside the intelligence center, the atmosphere is completely different. Every sensor recording from the last half hour is under review. Radar logs, electronic emissions, infrared signatures, nothing is overlooked. Because those 2 Su-35 fighters left something behind: data. From the moment the first radar signal appeared, the strike group's electronic warfare systems began capturing everything. Every frequency, every radar pulse, every targeting signal, every shift in waveform as the pilots changed modes. Inside the analysis room, a technician scrolls through the recordings frame by frame. Search radar patterns, fire control signals, missile guidance frequencies. Each one is a distinct signature. And now, all of them are stored. Across the network, electronic warfare teams from the destroyers and cruiser have already uploaded their data into the carrier's system. Multiple sensors, multiple angles, precise correlation. Together, they form a detailed profile of the Su-35's combat behavior. Its radar output, scan patterns, lock timing, missile activation cues, even the brief electronic spike that occurred seconds before launch. All of it is now part of the database, and that matters. Because the next time a Su-35 appears on a radar screen anywhere in the world, those systems will recognize it instantly. Back in the CIC, the tactical display now shows only open ocean. No hostile tracks, no warnings. The strike group has already returned to standard operations, but the crew understands the significance. This wasn't just a failed attack, it was also an intelligence opportunity, and opportunities like that are rare. High above the fleet, the E-2D Hawkeye continues its patrol, scanning hundreds of miles of sky for any sign of return. Nothing appears. The 2 Su-35s are gone, likely heading back toward home airspace at high speed. For their pilots, the outcome is already clear. Their missiles never reached the target, their aircraft were intercepted, and every signal they emitted was recorded. Back aboard the carrier, analysts keep digging into the data. The missile launch sequence receives special attention. Infrared footage shows the exact moment the weapon dropped from the wing. radar logs capture the guidance system activating. For a brief window, the missile's onboard radar illuminated the ocean ahead. Those signals were captured too. Now they can be studied, measured, and used to refine future defenses. Out on the flight deck, the sound of jet engines cuts through the morning air. A pair of Super Hornets returns from patrol, descending smoothly and catching the arresting wires with precision. Within seconds, they clear the landing area. Operations continue without pause. The carrier never slowed, never changed course. For the sailors on board, the entire engagement lasted less than 10 minutes. 2 missiles launched, 2 missiles stopped. 2 hostile fighters forced to withdraw. But the real result is unfolding quietly inside the intelligence center. Every radar pulse, every signal, every maneuver from those Su-35s has been captured and archived. And that information will go far beyond this single strike group. It will move through the Navy's intelligence network, into training systems, into defensive algorithms, into the next generation of air and missile defense planning. Which means those pilots revealed something they never intended to share. They showed exactly how their aircraft operates in a real engagement. And in modern naval warfare, that kind of insight can be more valuable than a win in the sky. Out on the open ocean, the carrier strike group continues forward. Radars turning, jets launching, ships holding formation, watching, waiting. Because the next encounter may come without warning. And when it does, the fleet will already be ready.